that said, so welcome to, I forget now, it's Washu Brew and what?
What's the brew with
I
Washu?
should have started with whiskey today.
No, this is rough. I'm Sarah. I'm one of the chief residents, and this is What's the Brew with Washu, episode 1, Stories from the ED. Am I supposed to be mic'd?
Yeah.
Awkward.
Clearly we're new at this. All right, so go ahead, you just go next.
Oh, hey, I'm Niko. I'm one of the fourth-year residents here. I think I've got a loud enough voice not to need this, but
That's for that camera.
oh, hey, what's up? Second camera. We're definitely really new at this and not that great at this. We'll figure this out.
It's going to be great.
All right, I'm Jason Wagner. I'm the program director. Clearly it had nothing to do with the title of this thing. This is a series we're going to do in an effort to educate and entertain. I think one of the great things about WashU is the friendly relationships we have between faculty and residents. It's something I didn't experience at any of my OA rotations when I was a medical student. And when I came here as a resident, I was really stunned by it because I trained in some places where the emergency department was a little more like a surgical environment, and it was very, I always can't say this word, hierarchical. Is that right?
Hierarchical.
Hierarchical? I can't say it. I put it like, it's like Worcestershire sauce. It's like too many. Anyway, there was not this distinct pecking order. We're friends and colleagues together, and it's one of the things I love about this place. And unfortunately for medical students, it's something that you're not going to get to see because you're not going to get to come and rotate here, and you're not going to get to hang out with our awesome residents during this interview season. So we're trying to give you a little taste of that over the next few weeks while we put together some of these videos. So we are in our resident lounge right now. We are just at change of shift, so you may see some people coming and going. You may even end up crossing our field of our camera field, but that's what we're here for, is to kind of just show you spontaneous WashU in action. Behind us is our WashU logo, courtesy of one of our former chiefs, Al Lula, through some donations from faculty. We are going to record this, and you'll be able to see the full frame in the recording. And we're going to move on to one of our guests today.
I'm one of the guests. I'm Gabe. I'm a PGY too. Dr. Wagner, or Jason, as we like to call him, because we're super friendly.
Because that's my name.
That's his name as well. He mentioned, the spontaneousness and also end of shift things. So I just finished a shift, and here I am. So I got roped into this. I'm really happy to be here. I got this coffee right now, and man, this is great.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking this coffee from Peru?
It's not,
Or is it from Rue?
It's from Blueprint. I think,
Oh, it's from Blueprint?
Yeah.
Oh, it's some high-class stuff.
One of our local.
This coffee probably costs like $5.50 right here. This is good coffee.
You are worth $5.50.
I thank you. I think that's the nicest things.
So I've got the Peruvian as well.
Peruvian.
Okay, let's go. We'll go down the line here.
All right.
So Peruvian.
I've got beer, but here's coffee.
Beer's next. First, you start with your coffee.
This is a Ugandan brew from Blueprint.
You got a bubble on your brew.
From Uganda?
From Uganda.
From Uganda.
You got this.
So I also have the Ugandan. It's really good. We have a lot of local coffee shops around, so we're going to be showcasing those. There's some stickers we can show as well when we go back. So thanks, Blueprint. I think we bought this.
I think we did. But I'm guessing we didn't pay for like 12 stickers.
No, probably not. And then you want to go down the line with
Let's
beer?
do beer.
All right, so the more important eye-opener is the beer that we're drinking. So I have a Forehand, which is one of our great local breweries, Incarnation IPA. It's just hoppy enough. It's really good. It's good for, a 3:30 p.m. beer.
This is the Urban Chestnut Brewing Company's Grapefruit Radler, which is, I guess, also sponsored by Big Shark. I conveniently decided to move about 2 blocks from the brewery, which was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
It is great by Radler standards. It's like a 1.9% or something like that.
No.
You can drink that all day.
I am already feeling it, which is kind of embarrassing.
Leave this for a second.
I'm a lightweight.
Okay. Well, he sorts that out. So, again, thanks to Blueprint. Bring right side up. Coffee. I think we got free stickers out of this. I think that's all we got. They are not sponsoring us. I am drinking Schlafly. Schlafly's kind of the original independent brewer in St. Louis. I wouldn't say that they brew the most exotic beers you're going to find in the city, but they brew probably the most solid lineup of staple beers. And they've been around for quite a long time. So I am drinking their Uncaged Ale, and this is actually a fundraising beer for Animal Rescue. my wife is a big animal rescue advocate. We've got a couple of pit mix rescue dogs, the spirit animal of St. Louis, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so to Uncaged Ale and Schlafly. And you're empty. Are you staying empty?
Yeah, I do not have a beer, and that's just because I want you all to know that you do not need to drink beer to come to this awesome program. I still drink beer regardless, just not right now. So if you do like beer, please come on by, but by no means we will not discriminate against you if you do not drink beer.
All right. Let's hand it off to Sarah.
Okay. So we have some stories from the ER that we're going to tell.
You have to be a little loud for that camera.
Okay, I'll speak up. Sorry, I worked last night and my voice is kind of gone. But anyway,
A lot of screaming in the ER.
screaming. It was fine. So I'm just going to kind of ask some questions, and then I'll tell my story when it gets back to me. But what is the funniest thing that a patient has ever called you on shift or off shift?
Well, for me, when you're born with a name like Niko Arendovich and you have, an olive green skin color, people immediately begin to question what your ethnicity is. This is a very common thing for me. This is why I go by Niko now. This gets overly complicated. Besides that, I end up being called young all the time. This is a common thing that I share with one of our current chiefs. His name is Matt Murphy. If we could pan the camera behind while he's got his mask up, he put it back up. He convinced me at one point that the idea of growing a mustache makes you look slightly aged. As a result, this is why you're seeing this beautiful caterpillar underneath my face.
Oh, that's a caterpillar.
It's beautiful. It's
It's a really
it's a
wispy
third
ear.
eyebrow. Or a second eyebrow.
That
if
is
you look
exactly
close
what
enough.
that looks like.
Split down the middle. It looks like a third and fourth.
I think it looks like a unibrow. That is the closest thing I can come with.
All right, so with my first unibrow, this actually gives me the sense that I have two eyebrows. This is perfect. I haven't really had many patients call me anything outside of mean things, but generally everything works out okay.
I wasn't prepared for this question.
Oh,
I mean, you will almost all get mistaken for being too young to be a doctor early on, and that's probably the biggest thing. Is I was
salad.
constantly asked was, "Are you old enough to be my doctor?" And the answer was always, "Yes, I'm here taking care of you right now." Jackass is probably a not infrequent compliment from our patient population around here.
I've never been called a rude name in the ED so far,
Oh,
but I have been called sexy. And I did have a 64-year-old woman once try to hit on me. And I think I had another 76-year-old person try to set me up with like their granddaughter. So I don't know. I feel like you kind of see a lot in there, but
I like that. I like that.
yeah, I don't know if it's funny. I was flattered at that
I
time.
think it's funny.
nurse. No.
Whoa.
Well, that's,
No.
but that's true.
No, it's true. It's true. But it's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
I would say we see a lot of patients that are on their worst day. So it's the nature of emergency medicine. You might get called a few names, but it happens, and you kind of just take it in stride and find the humor in it. So,
Don't mind us.
they're just
We gotta eat.
getting
Well, we gotta,
crackers. It's gonna be really fun on the mic. All right. Anyway, our next question: what is your scariest patient encounter that you've ever had? And it can be either like you were scared of the patient, or it was like a really sick patient. I have a story for both of those, so if we have time, I'll do both. But I'm gonna let Niko take it away.
I think I remember my intern year. We have a teach resident here, which kind of helps us walk through some of our more scary cases, our more critical cases. And, we always learn about aortic dissections and how we should always be scared about them in any case of like chest pain and something else. Well, I had a guy come in who was in his 40s, high blood pressure, and he said he had some chest pain and some leg pain. The story, it sounded like it, but you run this through your head so many times that you're like, well, probably not the case. So we do a bedside echo. It looks otherwise fine. We can't really see his aorta too well, but his heart looks okay. And his exam, he actually has like a diminished pulse in his left foot, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And I talked to my teach resident, and he's like, well, if you're concerned enough, get the dissection protocol. What happens is I talk to the rads tech, and I order the dissection protocol, and of course he cavalierly says, "Dissection protocol? You know, like 2% of these things are positive, right?" And he goes to the CT scanner at this time. I remember getting a call from as I went with him because I was kind of worried about him, but he was otherwise doing okay at that moment. I was on the phone with my now wife, and she was just asking how things were going, and I had a moment, so I was just talking to her, and then, of course, right before the scan goes, one of the nurses goes, "Oh, the patient's seizing," and I'm like, "That's super weird. That doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have a seizure history." And I said, "Check a pulse." Completely lost pulses. Didn't finish the scan. Ran him back to the room. Of course, when he was in the room, his whole family decided to show up into the room too, which was a giant nightmare. We started chest compressions and everything. He ended up having cardiac tamponade. He ended up getting bedside pericardiocentesis. Total nightmare. Sweating bullets the entire time. My teach residents definitely gave me a lot of guidance and let me run the whole thing and make sure I was doing everything right. Inevitably, the story was sad because he passed, but it was definitely a lot of what they call a proctalgia fugax, or butt clenching the entire time.
Who was your teach?
Zach Hoffes, of all people, that would be
Shout
so
out to
supportive.
Dr. Hoffman.
He sent me the nicest email afterwards just
Oh.
to kind of reassure me that everything went well and to keep these stories in mind. Here it is 4 years later.
You ready? You got one?
I got one.
All right.
So my scariest moment was also in my intern year. I don't know, it's just something about intern year, I guess. But I was also with a fabulous teacher. Her name was Emily Harkins. So shout out to Emily if you're watching. And if you're not, still shout out to you. This encounter, I remember it was in January. It was, in the evening around 7 to 8 p.m. Just got on shift. It was a weekend, and this guy comes in, shortness of breath. All right, no problem. He's not breathing super heavily. He came from triage. He's not on oxygen right now. No problem. I walk in, do my assessment, order your basic labs, and I walk out, present to Dr. Harkins, and she's like, "Yeah, sounds good." 1 hour later, he's on BiPAP, and an hour after that, he codes. So right before he codes, I get a call from the lab saying, "Hey, your guy, he has a white blood cell count of 197. Okay." I was like, whoa, you mean 19.7, right? No.
That's too many white blood cells.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot of white blood cells. And it turned out that he also had blasts of 84%. And unfortunately, there's nothing we could do at that point. He ended up coding and passing away. Sorry for him and his family. But it was definitely crazy because he was one of those guys that just, walked in, looks like a normal everyday dude with a complaint that is fairly common here in the ED, and before you knew it, 2 hours later, he's coding and passes away. So that was definitely one of the scariest moments of my short and brief medical career. But Dr. Harkins walked me through every step of the way, and it was a valuable learning experience.
Yeah, I think those are one of the things you learn is that there are patients that you can make a difference in their outcomes, and there are patients you just can't. And learning how to go home at night comfortable with what you did for the patients during your shift that day or night is really important to succeed in emergency medicine. And it's one of the big challenges we have to acknowledge when you've fallen short. That's not going to spray at all. No. Acknowledge when you've fallen short, but also understand when you've done everything that you could have done for somebody.
Right.
And sometimes there just aren't good outcomes to be had. I think my scariest moment was probably as a brand new attending, and we had an officer who came in shot in the chest, and as an individual, I ended up intubating the patient, cracking his chest, and doing the thoracotomy myself before surgery got there, and recognizing my esophageal intubation because I could feel it in his esophagus, through his thoracic cavity, and then having to go back and correct my esophageal intubation. And again, it's a sad story, but he did not survive to the OR. And it was one of the. I'm in the military. And taking care of people that you can relate to is always a challenge for us. So here's a cop who just went to work to do their job that day and didn't come home alive. And that was a real challenging patient. What encounters?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
Solid second question.
Anyway,
So
I
was
have
the
two,
first
and
question.
one will bring us back up, I think. So I think my scariest, like most proctitis fugax, is that what you call it?
Proctalgia fugax.
Proctalgia fugax. I don't know if this is actually my scariest patient encounter, but it's one that's really memorable.
It doesn't
So
sound.
just go with it.
So we do a lot of ICU rotations here. My favorite was the cardiothoracic ICU, and our class, the fourth year class, did it as an intern and as a second year. So we got to rotate through twice. So I was an intern in the cardiothoracic ICU overnight. Usually it's staffed by like 1 or 2 residents, usually interns, and then a fellow. And it is a lot of sick patients up there. So a lot of them are on ECMO or have, like intra-aortic balloon pumps. They're very sick people, recent cardiac surgery, recent codes. And so they require a lot of attention. And bedside thoracotomies are something that are fairly commonplace up there, which is terrifying, but cool to be able to learn from that. So one night in the cardiothoracic ICU, I was one of the interns. I don't know where the other one was, and the fellow was working. And one patient needed a bedside thoracotomy, and I think got crashed onto ECMO and then they were still coding, so they got a bedside thoracotomy. So they were opening the chest in the ICU room. And so the fellow obviously was really occupied with that, and I'm standing outside the room, and then I hear the alarms going off, and a patient in another room has gone into torsade de pointe and is in VTAC arrest.
Well, she really nailed that French.
Oh, thanks.
Good job.
I took a lot of French.
It shows.
And so I had to deal with that on my own, and then as I'm dealing with this patient in VTAC arrest, another patient starts alarming, and they are also in VTAC arrest. So there's 2 patients across the hall from each other, and then the next room there's an ED thoracotomy or a bedside thoracotomy going on, and I'm just dealing with these 2 patients that are in arrest while the fellow is helping with this bedside thoracotomy. So it was really, really scary, but also a really cool moment because it was the end of my intern year, and I was like, I actually know how to doctor a little bit. This is pretty cool. So that was one of my scariest patient encounters. On the flip side, one of my scariest, I'm scared of this patient encounters was in our behavioral health pod, so where we see a lot of patients with psychiatric emergencies. And incidentally, we see a lot of patients that are here that come to the emergency department because they're intoxicated on all kinds of mood-altering substances. So there was a patient that was brought in by EMS who was intoxicated on what we presumed was PCP, and it was later confirmed that it was PCP. And EMS had to give him ketamine to sedate him in order to bring him to the emergency room for monitoring. So he had gotten ketamine and was really sleepy and had been sleeping our entire shift, from the time he got into the hospital until, my shift started. And then I'm watching him a little bit. I had gone and reevaluated him. He would wake up, he'd talk to me, he'd answer my questions, and then he'd go back to sleep. And so I'm just sitting there writing notes and everything, and all of a sudden I look up on the monitor, because we have cameras monitoring these patients to make sure they're not, a harm to themselves. And he is standing in the room. He has torn off all of his clothes, all of the monitoring equipment that we had him on. And I'm sorry for cursing, but I'm going to try to be accurate as possible. I go out.
You're not sorry.
If you know me, you know I'm not sorry. I go out I go to the patient's room, and he is standing there stark naked, and in the voice of the devil, I swear it was the voice of the devil, he says, "Fuck you, I hope you die," over and over and over again. He's just clenching his fists, so that was interesting. That was a really scary encounter. Luckily we have security officers, and we were able to calm him down, give him some more medication, have him go back to sleep, and then I think it was a happy ending. He was recovered his mental status and left the emergency room to go potentially use PCP another day. So hopefully not. But does anyone have the funniest patient encounter that they can think of? Putting you on the spot. I don't think we rehearsed this question.
Well, before we go on, I'd like to show that I've changed beers. This is not a St. Louis native.
This is so sad.
This is Pabst Blue Ribbon. This was established in Milwaukee in 1844, and by 1893 was selected as America's beer. It's actually made with only the finest
Why
products.
the ad campaign for Pabst Blue?
The Nature's Choicest products provide its prized flavor. It's a humble drink for a humble group of people.
Totally not sponsored.
Blue ribbon.
Well done.
All right, funniest patient case here. You know, a lot of weird things happen over time. I remember when I was actually on the medicine force with this patient, that someone, speaking of PCP, was admitted for PCP altered mental status just to kind of watch him for a bit. And, you know, he wasn't really talking to me much, but the next day I went to go reevaluate him. I'm looking through his notes the morning of, and it was the best note from the physical therapist that made me have to go talk to this patient again to ensure this wouldn't happen. Essentially, one of the lines of PT came to evaluate the patient in the room. Patient immediately began masturbating when the physical therapist specifically asked, "Hey, can you please stop masturbating?" In the note was literally quoted as saying, patient began to say, "Just keep bringing it to me, just bring on the grease, help me finish." End quote. Having to talk to the patient about that was quite awkward. And I don't think he knew what I was talking about either. He left eventually.
As they all do.
Very nice.
Thanks for that.
That's a nice story. That's heartwarming.
So I have two stories, both tangentially related. The first one was when I was a medical student, and you get used to taking care of people in the emergency department who end up there through poor choices in their lives. Oftentimes they don't have choices or opportunities, but especially in trauma, a lot of the trauma patients we see aren't like us. They don't come from our backgrounds. It's easy to dissociate yourself from them because of that. And every once in a while you get a patient that is like you, or maybe like some of you. Anyway, you'll understand. So I'm a
Runs 100 miles a day.
I'm a fourth-year medical student doing my EM rotation, and we get a level 1 MVC, intoxicated woman, comes in, and they bring her in, put her on the gurney. She's just hammered and all but unresponsive. She can breathe, and that's about all she's doing. And we go through the trauma routine. As a student, my job is cut the clothes off, and that's what we did as a student. So we're cutting off her clothes, and I'm on one side, the intern's on the other side. And as we cut off what appeared to be like a prom dress, we get down to like all she's in is this like bright red underwear, and this is not normal in our trauma scenes. The whole room just freezes as everyone in the room just looks at this woman in her underwear, and they're like, and finally the attending's like, "Cut off the underwear." We're like, "Okay," cut off the underwear. So fast forward to 20 years later. And we're in another MBC, and this is here at Washu, and it's another woman, and they cut off all the clothes, and they get down to the underwear, and they cut the pants off. This person's wearing this giant strap-on, and the strap-on just flops out, and it's just hanging there in the wind, and everyone just stops, and they're just looking at this giant strap-on. Until someone finally says, "Cut off the dildo!" And we cut off the dildo and proceeded. You want to swap? We'll get another.
Remember when they
guest
told me to give ketamine to someone who threw up all over you? That was a good one.
Yeah, that's all you.
Yeah, you should tell the Dr. Allen story. That's a great
I've never
story.
heard of this story. What's the Dr. Allen story?
This happened to me, but not from a patient. This is now one of our fourth-year residents, was a bright-eyed intern, and we had a trauma patient that needed to get a pair of chest tubes. And one of our second years is working on a chest tube on one side, while the teaching resident is helping our intern do a chest tube on the other side. And I'm gowned up helping the senior, the second year, while the senior is gowned up helping the intern. And while we're getting the bed ready, the intern, who will remain nameless, adjusts the bed rail, at which time an entire urinal full of urine falls off the bed rail and hits the bed and spills, and then just slowly, I mean, like over a couple of seconds, but it didn't like splash. It just like drained right into my shoe. So my shoe is now soaked in this guy's urine, and I have a sterile gown on. We're about to do these chest tubes. We're just going to get this done and get it over with. So I'm just going to deal with my urine-soaked shoes, and I'll change out when this whole procedure's over. So we proceed with the chest tube, and I'm holding the lidocaine vial for the intern to draw up his lidocaine, at which point he stabs me directly in the finger with his 18-gauge needle, drawing blood and ending my involvement in the procedure.
Oh, jeez.
But, you know, I to give him credit, he finished the chest tube and he got it, and I had to change the clothes in my office, so everyone ended up okay at the end. So this was when I was a fourth-year medical student doing my ICU elective, trying to prepare myself to be a rock star emergency medicine resident. And I did my ICU elective at a affiliated hospital with my university where the EM residents from the program I wanted to match into did their ICU rotations. And I told them, like, I'm hungry for procedures. I really want to do procedures. And if I have any chance to do central lines, that would be fantastic. So it's a slow Sunday. There's nothing really going on. I'm like, do you mind if I go for a run? There's a park right outside. So, like, you can just run around the park, and if they need you, they just call you and you come back. They're like, yeah, we're doing 36-hour calls, so we're there for a long time. So it's not like I wanted to run in the middle of a 12-hour shift. So they were like, yeah, we're on call tonight. Go for your run, and we'll let you know if we need anything. So I just get done with my run, and it's summertime in Denver, and I am hot. And as I'm going into the locker room of the call room, the resident's like, oh, we're going to do a line change on this patient. You said you want to do central lines. Do you want to do the line change? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do the line change. He's like, we're doing it in 5 minutes. If you're not there, we're not doing it with you. So I quickly, like, will hop in the shower, rinse off, change into scrubs, get out to the patient's room, and the patient's on MRSA precautions. So you have to gown up, and at the time you had to wear, like, the plastic garbage bag gowns under your sterile gown. So I had the plastic gown, and then I had the sterile gown. And as I'm changing out this guy's guide wire, it gets stuck. And I've never done anything with the central line, so I have no idea how much pressure I can use, anything like that. And as I'm trying to figure this out, I just start to sweat. I'm a nervous sweater. And I'm already overheated. So it starts with, like, this drip coming off my nose to the point where, like, I'm dripping sweat on the sterile field, and the nurse is, like, trying to catch it with sponges, and then I just start pouring sweat down my body as I'm just soaking myself in my own sweat because I can't get this wire to advance. And the resident's just looking at me like, who the fuck is this guy? And finally I had to bail. I couldn't do it anymore. They're like, you're sweating too much on the field. We're going to get somebody else to finish this. So they pulled me off the procedure. And it was just like, it's so humiliating because I'm trying to A, impress these guys, and then B, trying to get some procedures done. So then 2 or 3 days later, they're like, we got another central line. If you want to, this is a fresh central line. It's not over the wire, a wire or a line exchange. So it's all yours. I'm like, fantastic. So it's a subclavian, a blind subclavian line. I'm doing the subclavian line, and I'm marking the clavicle with my finger as I'm advancing. And this guy's in a coma for unknown reasons with polysubstance abuse. Somehow, as a fourth-year medical student, I managed to bend the needle under his clavicle. And I discover this when the needle comes out from his substernal to suprasternal space and stabs me right in the finger. So not only did I stab myself with a needle, I stabbed myself with a used needle on a polysubstance abuse patient. It was really awesome. And once again, did not impress anybody with my central line skills.
That's why you didn't go into crit care.
So you can fuck up twice and still be okay.
Dr. Kim, do you have any stories you want to tell? I'm calling you out.
You have to get out.
And your shirt.
I can tell.
Show your shirt on camera, man. That's such a good shirt.
Yep.
Look at that shirt, man.
Introduce yourself.
I am Albert. I am one of the assistant residency directors.
He's the person that you send all of your emails to if you want to match here.
Sure.
He's our head of recruitment.
And
We
I
can
will
put that
say
email on the
thank
comment
you. I will
thread.
review your errors application. It'll be perfect. Actually, I'm going to steal a story from one of our graduates. So Sarah Manning, if you are listening in, this is your story.
The Sarah Manning story.
But I love this story because It was when she was a fourth-year resident, and I think it's funny for her, but it also is when she was supervising one of our interns at the time, we will be unnamed. But as a fourth year, you do a role called the teaching resident, where essentially you are a junior attending and you're staffing all the med student and the junior resident patients. And so they had a patient, a very nice, overweight female who came in with a GU complaint, and so she needed a pelvic exam. And so Sarah was like, "Do you want me to go in there and supervise the pelvic exam?" And the intern, I think, being just very sure, I guess, and I think feeling bad for taking Sarah's time, was like, "No, I've done a bunch. Like, I feel comfortable." And does the pelvic exam, and then comes back panics because and goes, "Sarah, like, I think this patient has a rectovaginal fistula," and is like, "I did the pelvic exam, like, just got into things that I was not expecting." And Sarah's like, "Well, that's weird. Like, that it's not really what I was expecting, but sure." So she goes in there, talks to the patient. Sarah does a second pelvic exam to confirm, and like everything's like still like stone cold normal. She's like, "It's really weird, right?" And so I was talking to the patient, and she's like, "So and the patient's like, yeah, what you think happened did happen." And Sarah's like, "Wait, why did you let that, like, what?" And the patient, just being very sweet and nice, is just like, "Oh no, like, I realized, like they're a new doctor, and like they were trying to learn, so she's like, I was just trying to be supportive." And then goes to Sarah and goes, "No, but it's okay, because I think the quote was,
I think I am.
yeah, because well, sometimes my man, he think he be loving me, but he ain't."
Baby, sometime my man think he be loving me, but he ain't.
I was like, and there it is. And that is my favorite story.
My
that
favorite
comes
part
secondhand.
is it was not favorite. It was a resident who already had like 3 kids.
Yeah.
He knew where the parts were, just not well enough, I guess.
Oh, no. I guess we're going to bring it down a little from that. What is your worst or most favorite trauma story? 'Cause we see some stuff. I mean, we see a lot of trauma here. We see a lot of penetrating trauma in St. Louis. If you look into this program, you'll hear a lot of, St. Louis doesn't have a county hospital, where, in other cities, the county hospital tends to take a lot of the patients that are more likely to be victims of penetrating trauma. We don't have a county hospital here, so Barnes is kind of the hospital that sees a lot of this stuff. And so, I was an early third year resident. As third years, we are seniors in the trauma and critical care department, or part of the department in the pod. And so you are the person that runs these traumas, and you kind of orchestrate the whole team, the trauma team that comes down and helps out, the emergency medicine team that helps with that does procedures and airway, and sometimes the primary survey, and then the trauma residents and attending that come down and help with all of that as well. But you, as a third year resident, are running that trauma. So one of my first traumas as a third year resident was a patient that was shot at close range in the head. She was like in her 30s, really young, and shot like point blank right here. So that was probably my worst trauma, because she was alive, breathing on her own. Her brain matter was coming out, not herniating, and it was just really eye-opening having to orchestrate all of that, get neurosurgery involved. The family wanted us to do everything for her, so instead of kind of just making her comfortable, we had to really have like difficult discussions with the family, the neurosurgery team, the trauma team, to try to figure out what the best course of action was for this patient. And that's, I mean, that was probably my most traumatic trauma that I've had to date. But it's unfortunately pretty commonplace here, which is great for training. But kind of the sad state of affairs. But it is what it is. Thanks.
Memorable trauma night for me was I've had two kind of mini mass casualties with traumas. One was when I was a brand new attending, and we heard a ruckus outside on what was kind of a boring night. And myself and my senior resident ran out there, and somebody pulled up in a Suburban, and it was full of people who had been shot up by an AK-47. And we went from board to 6 level 1 trauma patients instantly. And we had some good outcomes from that. We had some bad outcomes from that. But it just shows you how fast a night can change. And then similarly, 2 years ago maybe now, it was last summer or the summer before, I was working in TCC as an attending, obviously. And I got demoted once, but not recently. And we get a double drive-up GSW. So 2 GSWs come up. They get brought into trauma. We stabilize them, get them taken care of. While we're finishing with them, we get another page for a double drive-up GSW. And we have to pull patients out of rooms because we don't have enough room. And we put these 2 in 2 other rooms in our critical care area. We have 6 rooms, 12 spots. And as we're getting people sorted out in triage, who's going to go to scanner first and things like that, another page, or the charge nurse comes up and says, I've got a double drive-up GSW. We need a room for them. And I'm like, I've already got them in room 1. They're like, no, it's another one. I'm like, those guys are in 2 and 4. And she's like, no, there's a third one. So in 15 minutes, we had 3 double drive-up GSWs, and just again went from like 0 to chaos in no time flat. And we have the capacity in the rooms to handle that, but it is pretty crazy when that stuff happens. And then as an intern, I actually had I did a periabortive C-section with the OB resident. The 2 of us did it ourselves and saved a baby, not a mom, but a baby, and that was pretty crazy.
Not as funny, but I actually had a memorable trauma, not from the trauma itself, but it was actually interesting because I think in the ED we rarely get patient follow-up. But we sort of had an interesting trauma where I was working in TCC and we get a page that it was, I think, like plane crash, level 1, 2 survivors coming in. And that's all we got. And we're like, what the hell? Like, also 1 who survived the plane crash, but 2, like, I kind of feel like we would have heard a little more about this. And so it turned out to be like one of those like 2 or 3 seaters, like small little like single engine planes that I guess the pilot was actually like commuting with him, his wife, and his grandchild, and lost power to the engine and actually managed to do like a crash landing on this like deserted stretch of highway, and like actually managed to almost pull it off, clipped a wing, and then kind of flipped over. And then by chance there was a truck driving by that was transporting a forklift, so the driver got out, used the forklift to then flip the plane and help extricate these people from this like totally mangled plane.
Wait, I'll get my forklift.
Yeah, it's like totally random story. So they come in, we stabilize. They have a bunch of like ortho injuries, but overall doing all right. And so we got to the OR, and then like 2 or 3 days later, there's a Facebook group for EM docs, and someone just posted like, "Hey, like my parents were in this plane crash," and like gave the details and was like, does anyone know anything about like who treated them or what happened? And so they were able to, so someone else saw it and actually like connected us, and basically was like, oh yeah, like 1, thank you for taking care of my parents, but then also like gave us like all these updates on how they were doing, and then like a month later like messaged us again, said they were like home from rehab and doing really well, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. And then it was kind of cool to have a fellow colleague just sort of reach out and sort of understand what we do, but also like say thanks and then kind of give that follow up.
So yeah, we'll wrap up with what is. It can be 2 questions. What is your most interesting foreign body that you've had
Personally,
to pull out of a patient?
That's not my fingers.
Or what is the most awkward thing you've said to a patient or a consultant? Or any other story, because like we're loose here. This is my 2nd beer. I'm a little tipsy.
So this is a relatively recent one. Anyone that knows me, my family, my friends, my colleagues, my co-residents knows I have this really bad habit of not putting a lot of thought into what I say before I actually say it.
Ever?
Blown up in
Ever.
my face pretty much nonstop. Anything cringy that's said over the course of this entire thing, semi-related. There was a guy that got signed out to me, and they were like, oh yeah, he's getting admitted for some, moderate to high-risk chest pain. He's got diabetes, bilateral below-the-knee amputations, came in by EMS. And, normally I wouldn't think too much about this. Sounds like he's going to get admitted, no problem. The nurse is coming to me and is like, hey, this guy wants to leave AMA. So I go into the room. Immediately he starts yelling at me. I don't know who this guy is. I know about him, obviously, but know nothing else personal about him. He's yelling at me the whole time. He's like, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. He goes, it ain't going to stop me. He's like, I've left before. And for some reason in my head, my first response was, man, how you going to get out of here? You ain't got legs.
It's true.
Somehow, without missing a beat, the guy was like, I've crawled out of this motherfucker before. Ain't gonna be nothing related to it. And I was like, oh God, I can't believe A, I said that out loud, but B, now I'm gonna try to de-escalate this a little bit further. Eventually I said to him, I was like, hey man, let's talk for a bit about you wanting to leave, determine his capacity, make sure he's kind of fit to refuse care. And I was like, please just talk with me for a bit and I'll get you a wheelchair to get you out of here. He's like, I'm already calling my friend. I was like, yeah, but I still don't want you crawling through the hospital. That's all I'm asking. He left it, man. I'm sure he's fine.
And don't tell my boss I said that.
I've got a good foreign body and awkward statement. So
Are they related?
They are related. It's the same story, actually. So,
Twofer, I like it.
yeah, so it was Christmas Eve in the Deuce, where a lot of weird things end up.
Sounds like a song.
And we get this very, very friendly, very nice gentleman who comes in with a rectal foreign body. And we go in to talk to him, and he pulls out his phone and shows us a picture. And he's like, this is what's been stuck there, which is a 16-inch double-ended dildo that's been stuck in there for 24 hours. And he goes through all the elaborate things he tried to do to get it to move and couldn't get it out. And long story short, we called colorectal, and the gentleman was very open to trying new things. So we were able to remove it with a pelvic speculum and the pelvic tenaculums, and we were able to grip it and pull everything out.
You still want to mess with those.
Yeah. Anyway, and so, we're talking, during this whole ordeal, I had been talking to this gentleman a fair amount, we had good rapport, and I'm like, look, buddy, I'm going to tell you not to stick things up your ass, but we both know that's not going to happen. So, I don't know, man, tie a string out or something, right?
Double-ended.
So,
16 inches, man.
so, we're laughing at this, and then, almost exactly a year later to the day, I'm in EM1 now, and it was Rebecca who comes in with this giant shit-eating grin on her face, and she's just like, hey, I've got a Dr. Kim consult, and I'm like, this could be anything. I'm like, all right, I'll bite. And she's like, yeah, I saw your procedure note from a year ago on how you removed this thing. What'd you do? And I look up, and it's sure as shit the same dude, same problem, a year later. And oh, I gotta go see this, right? So I walk in, and before I say anything, the second time, the dude, looks over the door, looks at me, recognizes me, goes, Doc, seriously, I did. I tied a string on it, and the handle broke, and he shows me the broken handle. I'm like, well, shit,
Directions.
You did
Honestly,
everything you could.
it's not your fault, I guess. I don't know. Unfortunately, the second time I had to go to the OR to get it removed.
Bummer.
Next time he just inserts inflated Foleys ahead of time.
Yeah.
Mine's not as entertaining, I don't think, but still impressive. Croquet ball.
Ah.
Rectal croquet ball.
How'd you get it out?
An operating room got it out. Tried speculum, tried So like, spheres are a bad idea. Because you can't.
PSA.
For all of you.
They create a vacuum, and the roundness of them doesn't allow, like, even a wooden croquet ball, you can't get a tenaculum to actually grab it because you can't get it wide enough to get a hold of any substantial part of it, and you can't get a speculum deep enough around the back side to break the suction. So croquet balls, I don't recommend them. I do, however, if you would put a screw in, tie a string onto the screw, and then maybe I could get behind croquet ball. But
Would you put this?
What?
I'm just saying, because then you got a way to pull it out. But it was pretty big.
There's like companies that like go out of their way to make these devices so that they're easier to remove. I guess you could stick a screw into a croquet ball too.
Yeah. Listen, not everybody has the resources you have, Niko. Okay.
Sorry, so the Foley thing reminds me of the other funny part of the story. So the second time this patient comes back, and we're like, okay, like, we'll try the same thing with the pelvic speculum and realize, like, there's just too much suction, we can't get the hold of this thing. So we're like, well, it's fine, we're going to have to call colorectal. So we call colorectal, and the resident who, you know, like, it's over the holidays, is, like, on call, so it was just like, I don't know, man, why don't you guys just try, like, the Foley trick? And we're like, no, like, you got to see this thing, like the Foley trick's not going to work, and you can hear over the phone, like, fine, I'll come down, I'll get this thing out, like, kind of a waste of time, but fine, whatever, I'll just bang this out really quick. So he comes down, like, super cocky, walks in there for like a half an hour, like, walks out, super dejected, just like, okay, I'm going to call my fellow. Calls the fellow, and is like, yeah, no, the Foley thing not going to work. No, you're just going to have to come down here and see it. So then the fellow comes down from the OR, same thing, like, super sure that he's just going to walk in there, pull the sucker out, get in there for a half hour, comes out super dejected, just like, okay, I'm going to call my attending, it's fine. And so then listening to the conversation with the attending, he's just like, no, yes, I tried that. No, the Foley's not going to work. No, like, you don't understand. But no, he's like, so at some point, like, he's trying to convey, like, how large this thing is. And our patient, from the first time, realizing how hard it is to describe exactly how large this object is, the second time actually brought in a second dildo so he could show us exactly what was in there. Because that seems like the reasonable thing to do, to just have a spare around to be like, hey, in case this gets stuck, I need to show the doc what it looks like. So
Taking that crate over there.
Yeah, bring a snake in after getting bit.
yeah, so the fellow is like, no, let me take a picture of it. So takes a picture of it, and he's like, oh, I don't think the size is really coming through. So takes his shoe off, puts his shoe next to
But
it.
how big is his shoe?
It's the size 10 shoe, because he's like, it literally is the size of a size 10 shoe. Yes, that's my shoe size, as he's on the phone with his attending. Puts them on the table next to each other, takes a photo, sends it to the attending,
Just 10, really.
and like 2 minutes later, it comes back, it's like, yeah, so the attending says we're going to the OR.